The Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 2nd chapter. Mary and Joseph named their baby Jesus, but sometimes he is referred to as Emmanuel, because by coming to dwell with us, living and dying amongst us, he would be able to save us from our sin. Jesus was born in the town of Bethlehem in the province of Judea at the time when King Herod reigned. Not long after Jesus was born, Magi, wise men or seers from the east, made their way from the east to Jerusalem. These wise men made inquiries. These men from the east come looking for the one who has been born, who will save his people from sin. The wise men asked, "Where is this newborn? Who is the King of the Jews? When we were far away in the east, we saw his star, and we have followed its glisten and gleam all this way to worship him." King Herod began to hear rumors of the wise men's quest, and he and all of his followers in Jerusalem were worried. So Herod called all of the leading Jewish teachers, the chief priests and head scribes, and he asked them where Hebrew tradition claimed the long-awaited anointed one was going to be born. The scribes and priests told them, an ancient Hebrew prophet, Micah, said this, "But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are no poor relation, for from you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." From that prophecy, we learned that the Savior would be born in the town of Bethlehem, in the province of Judea. This information in hand, Herod orders the wise men to come to his chambers in secret, and when they arrive, Herod quizzes them. Herod called the wise men to him, demanding to know the exact time that the special star had appeared to them. Then Herod sent them to Bethlehem. Herod told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search high and low for this Savior child. And as soon as you know where he is, report it to me, so that I may go and worship him myself." The wise men left Herod's chambers and went on their way. The star that they had first seen in the east reappeared, a miracle that, of course, overjoyed and enraptured the wise men. The star led them to the house where the baby Jesus lay, and as soon as the wise men arrived, they saw him with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. They unpacked their satchels and gave Jesus gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. These are exceptionally good gifts, for gold is what is given a king, and Jesus is the King of Kings. Incense is what you expect to be given a priest, and Jesus is the high priest of all the high priests. Myrrh ointment is used to heal, and Jesus is a healer. But myrrh is also used to embalm corpses, and Jesus was born to someday die. And then, just as Joseph did a few months before, the wise men had a dream warning them not to go back to Herod. The wise men heeded this dream, ignoring Herod's instructions. They returned to their homes in the east by a different route. This is the gospel of the Lord. You may be seated. Epiphany is many things to us. The word itself means a revelation. And indeed, we are taught something very important here about this particular child. You see, it was easy to understand that he was born to all the world when he was born in a manger amongst God's creation with poor peasant parents and shepherds by his side. But these wise men, they come from the east. They're not Jewish at all. In fact, they're foreigners, and they're wealthy, and they're learned. They are the polar opposite of Mary and Joseph and of the shepherds. But they too have been waiting for this child. In fact, we know that historically their people had been taught to look for this star someday. And when these three people saw the star arise in the east, they suddenly realized they had to make their way to Israel to find this baby. And it was a journey. But they came prepared with gifts to give. Gifts that you would give to a king. Gifts that you would give to a high priest. Gifts that you would give to a healer. And what we learn about Jesus is this: He truly came for all people in the world. For the wealthy and the poor, for the young and the old. Doesn't matter what country, what nationality. Jesus came for us all. All people, all times, all places. A beautiful epiphany, if you will, for us tonight to realize that no matter who we are and what background we come from, Jesus came for us. But there is, of course, more to this than just that. These three wise men set out on a spiritual journey. They saw that star. It would have been easy for them to celebrate where they were. It would have been easy for them to say some prayers and give thanks. We saw the star. The Savior has been born. All is good now. But no. They set out on a journey. It wasn't good enough to just hear the story. It wasn't good enough to just see the star in the sky and experience the light shining through that darkness. It wasn't enough. They had to come, see the child in person. They had to make their pilgrimage. They had to go on this spiritual journey of growth. And it changed their lives forever. Think about their experience. This was not a 1 or 2 day trip. This was months, making their way through the deserts. They had to endure being cornered by King Herod and challenged as to why they were there. They met Mary and Joseph and literally sat with them, talking, asking them their experience. And of course, they brought their gifts to give to this child, to the Christ child. And I can imagine that on that night, as each one took their turn walking over to the child with a box in hand and placing it down before the child, kneeling down to one knee, they had tears in their eyes. They knew what this moment meant. This was the most important moment in each of their lives. They probably wanted it to last forever. They probably cried as they walked away. They probably spent months reflecting upon what they had experienced, and even feeling depressed for having walked away to return home. But this was their spiritual journey. And this too speaks to us. It is not enough for us to just simply come to church and hear the story, light candles, sing hymns, put lights on a tree, and give thanks. This child beckons to us. This child calls us out on a journey, a spiritual journey. It is a journey of a lifetime. Every moment of every day, that light that shines through the darkness calls out our names. And so we follow. We follow that light. We come bearing gifts, our talents, our abilities, our resources. We come to the child that we see in each other, the child that we see in the homeless person, the child that we see in the prisoner, the child that we see in a refugee, the child we see in the aged and the vulnerable, the child that we see in those who suffer. We come to that child bearing our gifts, because that is our spiritual journey. And we grow and we learn. And when we finally get there, tears well up in our eyes. Because as we stand before our brother or our sister, we know that somehow, some way, we stand before Christ Himself. When we feed the hungry, we feed Jesus. When we clothe the naked, we clothe Jesus. And when we give gifts to those who are in need, we are giving gifts to Jesus. This is our spiritual journey. It's a journey that renews us. It's a journey that we must travel as individuals and as a community. Because it's never enough to just come here and listen to the story and sing about it. We have to live it. We have to live it. Our faith, that light that we follow, is life itself. And so, on this Epiphany, just like the wise men a couple thousand years ago, we embark as a congregation and as individuals on a journey to spend this year and the years to come following that light, learning, studying together, serving together, growing together. This is our spiritual journey. We walk it together, side by side, gifts in hand, love in our hearts, as we continually seek that child of peace and hope in our world. Thanks be to God. Amen.